I would now request Mr. Srinivasan Rambhadran, board member and MD Asia Pacific DSS, who specially traveled from Singapore to chair this session, and as so many others. And then Dr. Vishal Chaudhary, Deputy Industrial Advisor, who's DCPC Government of India. He's still with the Secretary. He's waiting to get the permission from the Secretary to come and join. And then we have Mr. Abhijit Rajput, Technical Director, ERM. He was going to make a presentation of ERM safety survey. They do a safety survey. And then we have Mr. Mahendra Shelke, AGM, Head of Logistics and Warehousing, and he's going to present on industry collaboration for a safer chemical ecosystem. So kindly take the chair on the dais, please. So just to briefly introduce Mr. Srinivasan Rambhadran, he has over 35 years of international experience that includes managing operations and management consulting, currently leads the Asia Pacific region of DSS, as I mentioned, the global operational management consulting company founded by DuPont. He has led and supported multiple client engagements for companies across Asia Pacific in organizational transformation and engagements in safety and operational risk and sustainability. Dr. Vishal Chaudhary, many of you know, he has not joined in as yet. He's the Deputy Industrial Advisor. And we have Mr. Abhijit Rajput, is a Technical Director with ERM India and is based in Mumbai. Abhijit has over 20 years of consulting experience in occupational health, safety and environment, having worked in a variety of industries including chemical, oil, gas and pharmaceutical, mining and metals, manufacturing, engineering and capital projects in India, Oman, Brunei, Singapore, South Africa, Liberia, Sri Lanka, Kenya and Uganda. Wonderful. And then we have Mr. Mahendra Shelke. He's backed by over 20 years of experience. Mahendra V. Shelke is currently AGM and Head of Logistics and Warehousing, Lanxess, India. He has earlier also had 5 years experience in Reliance Industry. He's an MBA in Materials and Logistics Management from Pune University and graduate in Electronics and Power Engineering from Nagpur University. The session is in your hands, Mr. Srinivasan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, it's always a challenge to have a session immediately after lunch, so let's try to do some justice. Firstly, the topic is about safety and how that safety links to sustainability. So thank you for inviting me to chair the session and share some opening remarks. I come from an organization which used to be known for safety, DuPont, and we have now come out of DuPont and now an independent entity. But obviously, this is something which gets ingrained, as a culture, as a mindset, as a behavior, and that is what takes us forward from what we are doing today. So what I would like to do is to start by sharing how safety is foundational for us to move forward and what changes are required, in kinds of, given that many organizations have already been implementing a lot of the practices for a long time. What does it take for us to go to the next level? I think if you take standards or procedures or training, I don't think there is any shortage of standards or procedures or training or even compliance checklists. There are abundance of this available. What is required for organizations is to ensure that they make it come alive. Making it come alive, making it work on a routine basis. So I usually use an acronym, what I call as CEO. CEO. Let me expand what that CEO means. First is having a mindset of risk and communicating about that risk. Right? Because absence of incidents does not mean everything is safe. So at the outset, if there is no vulnerability, no sense of vulnerability, there is no mindset about potential risk, that becomes the biggest challenge for organizations. So the starting point is having a risk mindset, communicating about that risk across the entire organization. That is where the C stands for. Second is engaging the organization. You can have, if you take the leadership, definitely there is a lot of commitment. Who wants to have incidents? Nobody wants to have incidents. And, in terms of commitment, how do I differentiate between commitment and intent? Commitment is intent plus my action. Many people have the intent, but what happens, it gets delegated to somebody else to do the job. So that is not commitment, that is only having the right intent. So if you don't have the communication, and if you don't have the engagement through myself, so what I see as a big challenge with many organizations, they think they are spending a lot of time on safety. And how do they spend that? Oh, I start every meeting with safety. Oh, I have a checklist, I get the checklist filled up. Oh, I have board review meetings. Oh, when there is an incident or a fatality, I get that site plant leader to come and talk to the board about what happened in safety. We have created some negativity around safety rather than positivity around safety. It's not about creating a negative environment or punishing people. Engagement is proactive identification of risks and helping people to understand what I need to do to prevent an incident from happening tomorrow. So that is where engagement is. It's not just about training. Training is one way. Engagement is two-way. How do you engage the organization? Why people are not following the rules? The challenge is around what we call as operational discipline. Operational discipline is what is expected and what has been defined, but what is the reality on the ground. This is what we call as operational discipline. The higher the gap, the lower the operational discipline. Lower the operational discipline, higher the risk. So if we really want to reduce the risk, we have to improve operational discipline. That is about engagement of the organization, understanding of the risk, understanding of what is it that I need to do today to prevent an incident tomorrow. And many times what we find is, I'll give you a simple example of what operational discipline means. I was in one of the refineries, and you have this tank farm, and there is this fuel tank, and they have to drain off the water every day. And so there is obviously a valve, but they need to put a blind, in case of any emergency. So initially the blind had 8 bolts, so they were putting all the 8 bolts. But after some time, people felt, why do I have to do this every day, 8 bolts? I can probably live with 4 bolts. And then over a period of time, from 4 it became 2, and then from 2 it became 0. Nothing happened. 1 week, 1 month, nothing happened, so that becomes the norm. So the normalization of deviation over a period of time has become the standard. That is what we call as operational discipline. And if we allow that deterioration of operational discipline, and why did that happen? Because there was no engagement, there is no two-way communication. There is not an explanation of what could go wrong, what could be the consequences of your action. Nothing happened today does not mean nothing will happen tomorrow. So that is the engagement piece. So the third is ownership. So the ownership, what tends to happen when we review a lot of the results of the risk assessment, nobody wants to make decisions. They keep pushing all the decision making upwards. It's easier, so you told me, I did what you told me to do, so don't blame me. So the ownership is about ensuring across the various levels of the organization, the levels of risk are understood and empowered to make decisions depending on the level of risk. Obviously, if it is going to be involving the whole site or the whole organization, that cannot be delegated down below to an operator level or a frontline supervisor. So that is where the ranking of the risks How do you ensure the ranking of the risk? And depending on the level of risk, there has to be assigned ownership and accountability. So if I am the CEO, what is expected of me? I need to know what are the top 5 risks that can bring down the organization. So usually there are 4 or 5 questions I ask the leadership. Number 1, do you know what are your top 3 to 5 risks? That itself is a big challenge, because many times you talk to 5 different people, there are 5 different risks or 10 different risks. So there's not an alignment of risk. So first is, what are the top 3 to 5 risks that can really bring down the organization? Second, what controls do you have? So sometimes the controls were put 20 years back. Is that adequate? Is it enough? Have we evaluated those controls? That is the second question. The third question is, will those controls work when on demand? As an example, one of the organizations I was reviewing, we went for an assessment. They had spent a lot of money. They had a fire tender. They spent a lot of money, but the fire tender was not going to work anymore because it had deteriorated over a period of time. Nobody maintained it. So it's not that companies are not spending money. The money was spent so that when there is a demand, that control would work. When the demand, if the control is not going to work, the money that has been invested is an utter waste. So that is where the ownership and accountability across various levels needs to be managed. Engagement, communication, engagement, and ownership. So that was the third question. Will those controls work when on demand? The fourth question is, as a leader, how do I assure myself that these are working? It cannot be just sitting inside a boardroom and looking at the information. Have I visited the site? Why that is important? And some of you may have gone through that 5th discipline, the ladder of inference. What is that ladder of inference? I get all these data from all my direct reports. But how do I view the data? I view the data through what I have experienced through my site visits. Because that helps me to neutralize the noise in the system, because what I saw in the field versus the reality, there is a gap. And so when I get the information and data, how do I process that information? That is where the ladder of inference is about ensuring leaders walk around, especially focusing on the critical risks. If there are 5 critical risks for me as an organization, as a leader, I need to walk around to ensure those 5 risks, the controls that are working, the controls that are being put in place are adequate, will work when on demand. That gives me the assurance. So when I get the data inside the boardroom or review meetings, I'm able to correlate between what I hear and what I saw, and that gives me a feeling of confidence. Ultimately, at the leadership level, what we want is we want the confidence that nothing bad will happen. And how that confidence will be gained is to ensure there is proper communication, there is proper engagement, and there is proper ownership. And with safety being the foundation, what we are right now seeing is there is a huge opportunity, safety and operation. Why this is very critical? Because people always view safety separately and operation separately. It is not about safety and operation, it is safe operation. You cannot operate without safety, you cannot do things safely without operation. And what we have seen is the opportunities that exist is most of the time safety issues are because of poor operational issues. Because you have not maintained your equipment at the appropriate frequency, there is overdue maintenance. Because of that, there is corrosion. Because of that, there is potential leak. Because of that, there is safety incident. And what we have seen is if you link the two, it is not only that you're contributing to reducing incidents, but you're actually contributing to improved productivity and efficiency. So many of the clients that we have worked with, what we find is the plants are operating less than capacity. And when we look at the maintenance programs, there is a huge opportunity for improving the maintenance because that can reduce the potential risks and the incidents, and then safety and operation go hand in hand. So that's where I see, and how does this link back to sustainability? Because if we are able to improve our maintenance and reliability, we are able to contribute to productivity and efficiency. We are able to contribute to lesser footprint per unit of product. And given where we are in the journey to net zero, I think the first step that we have to take is to ensure improved efficiencies. Because many of the areas that we are looking at, the technologies are not yet viable or available. We cannot sit tight and say, oh, I don't have the technology. No, I have to wait for the technology. In the meantime, many corporations have started to set if reduction in emissions by 20% by 2025, by 2030. And how is that going to come about? By improving your operational efficiencies, by improving your maintenance and reliability, and thereby contributing to improved safety performance. So that's what I wanted to set as a context. Now I'm going to invite Abhijit to share the results of the survey. Thank you, Abhijit.
Thank you, Chair, for such insightful remarks in the beginning and to set the context. I'm here to share the key insights from the health and safety survey that ERM conducted. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And in the interest of time, I have to distill some key insights from such a data-rich report that ERM has been able to develop. And I hope that the insights that I would share would resonate with you in the context of your role, in the context of how you have been approaching health and safety in your organizations, and probably that would be providing some insight and information to you, but more importantly, generate some thinking. Can we go to the next? Okay. So this survey involved a very intense activity spanning over 6 months. Almost 50 ERMers were involved across the globe. 273 health and safety functional leaders were interviewed. And when I say interviewed, those were one-on-one conversations using a questionnaire. So these were lively discussions, not an online survey. And majority of these conversations exceeded the stipulated 1 hour duration. And those are the insights were really analyzed, and that is what is captured in the main report. These 273 functional leaders have been representing their global organizations in various countries. They have operations in multiple geographies and thousands of employees working under them. They have been in the thick and thin of situations, handling certain emergency situations, managing regulatory expectations, and all of that. So we can imagine the insights shared by them are really practical and really insightful. In total, 189 companies they were representing to. And if we see the cumulative workforce, that is employees they are employing, is exceeding 12 million, and almost equal number of contractors. Other statistics are there to see, but more importantly on the right top corner, what we can see is out of those 273, 60% were very senior leaders heading the health and safety of their organizations, and some others were in the regional roles or program heads. The bottom pie chart also exhibits the sectoral demographics, and here you can see a substantial representation from chemical industry, almost 14%, and the pharma and healthcare almost 7%. The whole study was distilled into 6 key conclusions, and these are kind of highlighted here. So I will be trying to distill some of these insights in the stipulated time and share those insights. But the key ones are like thriving businesses need thriving people. That means the people are at the center of everything, and that's where the desired results are obtained or they are not obtained. Leaders are not just paying the lip service, they are really contributing to improving the health and safety performance. They are showing the path. That's what the data tells us. And also there is no cause for complacency. They are investing. There are real and there are substantial efforts being put in by the organizations. But at the same time, the data also points out there are very much persistent deficiencies in the health and safety, the way it is being approached, the way it is being implemented, and the way it is being designed as well. Obviously, since the survey was conducted in 2020, there was a lot of bearing over COVID-19. So we did get some relevant insights on that. And also the evolved approaches. What kind of approaches are really helping the organizations in gaining the improvements in their health and safety performance and improving the culture? So getting into it, the increased stakeholder expectations, that's what the highlight is. So the question that we asked to these participants was, are you expecting or realizing a change in the stakeholder expectations when it comes to health and safety? And on the left-hand graph, what you see are the stakeholders that are listed. And consistently, graph indicates that there is no decline in stakeholder expectations. They're ever increasing. And that's what is indicated in some percentages. So, what are the factors that are underpinning these changes? I think those are also listed here, but 24% are highlighting or contributing that to the ESG needs or the investor requirements. And I think that has been the highlight of what we have been discussing and deliberating in this forum as well. Majority of leaders have correlated that linkage. As I said in the conclusion, the leaders are showing the path. They are not just saying good things, which are really good to hear, but they are also demonstrating. And that's what the results show, that majority of them have started contributing. And this is the data representing over a 2-year period. And that's a positive change. And that's a good change for the organizations. At the bottom graph as well shows a positive correlation with these whole efforts that organizations are putting in improving the systems and performance, and with leadership engagements as well. There is an increasing risk aversion. That means the risk appetite is on declining in general. And that's also good news. This is also positively correlated with the investments that are happening. When we ask what kind of investments or scale of investments are happening in health and safety, so that's the data which is shown. And it's more than 40% average compound growth over the 5 years between 2018 to 2023. And where it is expected to be invested is shown on the right-hand table. And majority of that, you can see the top one is technology. And that's what, again, the linkage what we have been seeing throughout the various deliberations in this conclave as well. Technology holds the ground. And that's the advantage to the industry. Another key highlights are mental health and obviously the leadership and cultural transformation programs. So this does underline that leaders are not just providing a lip service, but they are showing through their actions. and that is being realized by people across the levels. Another insight that I would like to really share here is performance improvement. There is definitely a performance improvement. That is what is indicated in the first graph on the left-hand side. And that indicates that there is an improvement over lagging indicators. That means the reportable incidents or lost time injuries are reducing in these, that's the experience of these organizations. And that's a very positive development and positive outcome. But at the same time, when we ask them, how satisfied is their senior leadership with your health and safety performance and culture, it was a mixed bag response, and that's what you can see, only single-digit response, percentage response, saying yes, the senior management is fully satisfied. But that's not enough. And why is that? It's somewhere correlated with the data on the right-hand side, the violin graph. You see it's a logarithmic graph. Majority of these organizations, almost 27% of those participants, organizations, have experienced one or more fatal incident. And that's really concerning. And that's very much correlated with how the senior leadership is gauging their own performance. In next few insights, I'll share about what are the persistent systemic deficiencies that have been really highlighted in the survey. There are challenges with established health and safety processes. Every organization with all good intent tries to really design, establish very good processes. They train their people and they continue to do that, but in spite of those humongous efforts, they're still not deriving the value. And that's what this data indicates. Like almost 35% of participants are still saying our systems are really not fit for purpose. They're bureaucratic. They do not keep in mind the human element. Almost 24% are highlighting that the systems are sound, but the implementation is not. We are failing to derive value from that investments. So this does indicate there are lots of improvement opportunities from what we are already doing, but using those tools, processes, using and equipping our people more effectively can really help in achieving more without really investing in something new for sake of doing it. Every time we call it as health and safety, but hand on heart, how much attention we pay to health, that is H part of it. And that's what also reflected in the data, the H is not getting that much attention. And this was also asked in the context of the mental health. What kind of, do you have mental health programs, and what it is really giving the value to you? And the data tells us that majority of organizations, they have some kind of mental health programs, but only few of them, very small percentage of them are saying, yes, they are effective. Even 19% of the participants said they are not even integrated with the health and safety function. It is being managed by some other function, like HR. The graph at the bottom middle shows that only 4% of organizations are feeling that, yes, they are deriving value from this, or they are getting the desired outcomes. But this is the least response rate we have received on any aspect in the survey. And that shows that this is one of the poorly designed or approached aspect. And in the context of pandemic as well, it really heightened the seriousness. But irrespective of that, it still needs attention. Another, I think we had very engaging discussions on this. I myself was also part of as an interview team. And what it highlighted is, yes, we take every precaution to hire right resources when it comes to health and safety function as well. But with respect to the change in expectations of stakeholders, with respect to various factors which are driving the changes, which are highlighted here, like higher level of leadership engagement, there is an expectation to use the tools and data as well. It does really highlight some of the key competencies. Those are needed in the organization. And those HNS functions, the priority competency that is highlighted by these participants is almost 42% are highlighting there is a need to improve the softer skills. That means communications and coaching and facilitation, coaching leaders at every level to bring that change in their mindsets. And that's what is being highlighted here. In the previous graph, we saw that there is a good news. Leaders are engaging, they're showing the path. That's good news. But is it translating into actual improvement in the performance and culture? Is it resulting into the changing the mindset of people? But the answer is, it is work in progress. It is still not the case. Because only 8% of the participants have said, yes, their leaders do effective engagements, which is resulting into cultural transformation. And that's real gap. Yeah, so there are multiple tech innovations. Those are also driving the whole story. There is very high positive kind of response on this, that it is really beneficial, and multiple kind of solutions that they have been using are highlighted in the table. It is very crucial to see there are some key insights they have shared while implementing and designing these systems, and one of that is, okay, engage all the stakeholders, start early, are the kind of advices. And this is a last element, and it talks about what are the evolved approaches they're using, what are the new approaches they're using. And by majority, or half of them have highlighted leadership, involvement, and engagement is the key. Whereas there are a list of others which they are also implementing and using. Our view is the combination of these would really help the organization in enhancing the performance and culture. So the full report, which is a very data-rich report, is available on our website. The link is provided here. I'm here till evening. If you wish to discuss or deliberate on any particular insight on this, I'm available. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Abhijit, for the insightful report. Obviously, there's a lot of information available from that. And I think the engagement was pretty extensive, so thank you very much for that. I invite Mahendra to share his perspectives.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the last but one slide mentioned the engagement into the technology, and I can see how we can immediately look into our smartphones and search for things. So thank you very much for the attention. So standing here in the ICC Sustainability Conclave, just keeping one thought in mind, which also has been mentioned in the initial talk, is about what do we really think sustainability is, and to bring it a different perspective. I think safety is something which is equally important as we think about green topics. Safety, because see, think about an organization where some incident happens, what happens to the image of the company, what happens to the credibility of the company. So it is very important that for a sustainability, we strive to really focus on safety as well. So, to begin with, I'm here to talk about a collaborative effort within the industry wherein safety is talked about, wherein safety is practiced and it is further augmented by collaborative efforts. So, it's the initiative which is called as Be Safe. We are talking about Bromine, and basically about Bromine Safety Council, the International Bromine Council. And this is an international body which actually talks about, established in 1997, and it promotes the bromine and bromine technologies for the society and economy. And it has been working on different topics wherein global engagements are really seen. We talk about the mercury emission reductions, so bromine is basically effective in reducing the mercury emissions. There has been the engagements with the stakeholders to also talk about the climate change and energy. We are also trying to see how chemical management, so all the member companies of PCEF internationally are also part of the respective responsible care organizations. So that's something which is the global initiative we are talking about. Now, this is the global presence of BCEF. So you can see virtually across the continents we are present. Now just talk about India. So when I'm talking about the bromine platform for India, let's look at the numbers for bromine. So bromine as such, we will see that we can see almost 56% increase in less than a decade from 21. That will mean that the bromine industry will prosper. They will have opportunities to make more profits. But at the same time, I think it's very important that how are we really tackling the safety coming out of this product, which is bromine. So just to give the glimpse of the news. So you can see a company can be in the news for wrong reasons, and the news can be flashed across the globe. And obviously for sustainability topic, we don't want our company to land up in a bad news, right? So that's the reason the India Bromine platform is actually being established. This was established in 2019, basically to foster the ecosystem. And when we talk about ecosystem, it's actually a buzzword now, and we talk about having all the stakeholders coming together and touching all the areas wherein an ecosystem is developed. So the vision for India Bromine platform is basically to strive and foster the bromine industry by promoting the benefits of bromine. So as I mentioned about the mercury reduction, bromine is excellent in the fire retardants. So it's basically to strive the bromine industry. The members of the IBP are the bromine producers, bromine suppliers, and of course, Indian Chemical Council. I think it's been a great association. And at the same time, Avalon Consultancy is actually representing the ex officio BCEF Global. And it is basically helping the bromine industry in India to develop and trying to develop activities, develop the programs for the IBP. So you see the number of companies, the logos which you can see here are part of IBP. Now the concept mission is actually, I mean, just look at how companies, so just think, this is one product, bromine. All these companies are virtually the competitors. And then when the competitors come together and talk about developing something which is mutually beneficial for each company, that is actually a collaborative effort. So we are not talking about chemical industry together coming in, but at the same time, this is the same product manufacturers coming together to talk about safety, to talk about different concepts, to really foster this association. So it is basically also to enhance the collaboration, sharing the knowledge. So obviously different companies are at the different knowledge level basis. So that's the concept mission for IBP. Now we are also talking about very well-defined roles and responsibilities. So obviously the member companies have well-defined roles where they have to come up with the ideas, they have to come up with the suggestions, share the best practices. At the same time, they will make the resources available to really enhance the IBP's presence and IBP's development. Indian Chemical Council, I think this is something which is a great support that IBP has received. ICC is basically providing the umbrella to IBP. It will support to liaison needs of the IBP where, you know, ICC has lots of expertise available. And then also talking about developing the government regulations. So for example, as of today, there is a need of mercury emission regulations, which is not in place. And once that is in place, obviously, this brings in two ways, one for society and secondly also for the industry. So ICC will support the IBP for having discussions, government connects, so that this can be further enhanced. We have refined and defined roles for Avalon and BSEF, where Avalon is basically also organizing different meetings within the IBP companies. It is also developing programs for the IBP members. And it is also providing the snapshot of what's happening globally. So BSEF globally is engaged into different activities. And the Avalon Consulting is providing that snapshot to India Bromine platform. Now, a lot of key points that have been achieved so far. So when we talk about the ecosystem, obviously we are talking about different stakeholders collaborating in different manner. So taking safety as a major concept, a safety working group was formed within the Bromine platform. And there are bi-monthly meetings which are happening, wherein a lot of discussions are happening between the member companies where best practices are shared. At the same time, a lot of initiatives have been thought of. We have been able to publish a bromine safety handbook. It's basically a handbook which is available on the ICC website as well. We have been also able to shoot a video, and please understand, when a video is shot inside a company is opening themselves to the rest of the world to look inside what's happening inside their company. And that's for the benefit of the rest of the companies, wherein a safety video is shot where the best practices, how safety can be really handled across the stakeholders. So right from the transportation, the workmen inside the plant, the people who are bottling the bromine. So all the activities have been actually addressed in the video. So that is something which is a great example of the collaborative effort. That is something which have been done with IBB safety working group meetings. Forward path. So when we talk about forward path and when we are talking about the ecosystem, there has been discussion with NICER Globe. I'm sure most of you would have heard of NICER Globe, which is a wonderful initiative by Indian Chemical Council. And the discussions are on with the NICER Globe team, with the IBP, of how the association can be really enhanced to have emergency response in place for bromine. We are developing different emergency response capabilities for IBP. There are multiple discussions which are happening. Obviously, when we talk about safety, it's very important to have the mock drills in place, because that gives you a complete insight of how prepared you are and what are the lackings that you have in your setup. Because a mock drill really gives you that mirror to look into where you have to really improve. So that's something which is being planned, and the mock drills will definitely help the IBP to understand, and the member companies to understand what are the areas where they have to really improve. Now, the platform will also, along with the government agencies, they will try to work on different areas where the regulations and standards, which I mentioned just now, wherein the bromine industry can foster. So just to give you the glimpse of the bromine safety handbook, this is a wonderful collaborative effort wherein member companies have come together to jot down in detail what are the safety topics that have to be really addressed and looked into when you are talking about bromine. Now, coming to NICER Globe. So I'm just taking just few minutes to give brief about NICER Globe to the audience sitting here. Wonderful initiative by Indian Chemical Council, and when you talk about any collaborative association, how it really develops step by step is I think NG is the wonderful example of that. It started in 2013 with a few like-minded chemical companies coming together and talking about the need to actually have the emergency response needs to be addressed, because it's always the golden hour we talk about, where your response decides how bad the incidents can go on. So NISOGlobe basically talks about, and when we heard about the ERM's findings, that the technology is something which is basically thought about. So NISOGlobe platform basically works on the track and trace, where the live tracking of the vehicles which are fitted with the GPS devices are thoroughly checked. They're online. So if you see the objectives, this talks about a lot of things which are completely linked with safety and transportation safety. Even if we have kept it at the end of the supply chain, you have to also know that if something goes wrong there, obviously everything else will be in question mark, and the company's reputation will be directly in question mark. So you cannot have something, a hazardous chemical which is running on the road is really left without any knowledge of that transporter and that driver. So we talk about a lot of initiatives which talks about driver trainings, talks about auditing the transport service providers. A wonderful initiative, wherein, as I mentioned, the technology, it gives you a glimpse of everything that you want to see on your vehicular movement, gives you a lot of data analytics, gives you a different perspective of how you look at your transportation setup. And just to give the use case, so Lanxess, and I'll put it how the ecosystem is developed. We have used this data to give performance evaluations to our transporters and the drivers, where the drivers, the most neglected community, has been really given the importance, where they are rewarded for their good performance and safety. Obviously that we are bringing in, we are engaging them into that ecosystem. So that is something which is what we are trying to achieve out of this. So multiple support levels. So level 1, level 2, level 3. We have 24/7 call center available under NISOGlobe. Extremely efficient people sitting there. You will not have any delays. So just in case somebody wants to try, just try and give the call to this number and you will see the response, what you get out of the emergency response. You will get response within minutes of where your vehicle is. So that kind of efficiency we have developed. And obviously this is step by step. We have emergency handling. So the level 3 services, wherein the Indian Bromine platform will have associations with NISOGlobe. As of now, 15 emergency response teams are in place. Extremely efficient, and as I mentioned, the mock drills. The NISOGlobe team is also engaged in mock drills to really assess their performance on road. So that's something which has been a great initiative. I think a collaboration with IBP and any other association is really going to create that very encompassing ecosystem for us and for the chemical industry. So yes, building sustainable, safer, and resilient chemical supply chains. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mahendra. I think fantastic initiatives around the Indian Bromine platform and the NISOGlobe. So really appreciate that opportunity. Now I invite Mr. Chaudhary to share the concluding remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I'm thankful to Indian Chemical Council for inviting me in this very useful and important session. And as I was listening to both the speakers, and many things were really new to me also, and really an eye-opening and very good initiatives. Like Mr. Abhijit Rajput told about that TRME study survey and how those 6 points that the thriving business need, the thriving people. And I really appreciate that the fact that the study has come out that in top industry and the responsible industries are really giving a more concern on health and safety aspects for its employees. So that is really a very good point. We should appreciate that. And also, I agree to what Rajputji said, that COVID has really told us and given us, has taught us to be focused on health and safety, more towards health and safety. And we should be more responsible towards that aspect also, as industry, as an individual also. So thank you very much for that, your important this talk and session. And then Mahesh Shilke ji is really this Nicer Globe initiative, I really appreciate, sir. I was not knowing that much details, and it's really a very good initiative. Because the safety, it's not only for the chemicals or the, personnel who are working inside the factory. But when any hazardous chemical is being moved or transported across the road or through any mode of transportation, the monitoring, live monitoring, on-track monitoring, and the knowledge dissemination to the truck drivers, all these things are really very much required, and all the companies who are already doing compliance to that, all the Nicer Globe initiative adopting, it's really a very good thing, and really it should be encouraged, and industry should encourage to adopt such practices. It is required, and with the requirement of the day. So the theme of this session was the safety promotes sustainability, and we fully agree to that. I think we all should agree to that. Just to add on that, what Department of Chemicals and government is doing on these aspects. So we are also working very much on this safety aspects and the sustainable development of the sector. Recently, we request Indian Chemical Council, and they have developed they have come out with a very good training modules or courses for the MSMEs on the safety aspects. And I think that course is being developed in the collaboration with Institute of Chemical Technology. The experienced and technical minds are there on developing those courses, and the trainings will be imparted to the MSMEs industries to give a good manufacturing practices and also the safety aspects and the safety practices to be adopted and followed in their respective plants. Time to time, we are also issuing the safety advisory and also the safety guidelines recently we have issued. We always, in the last 2-3 years, at least 3 times we have issued the safety advisory to all the industry associations so that the chemical accident can be prevented in the very first place. And if it all has happened, then what are the steps which are immediately required to be taken so that at least minimum damage maybe to be, damage control can be done immediately and minimum damage to be there for the property and for the human life. So those advisory and guidelines are also being issued by the department. Department has also established the industry facilitation cell wherein we are meeting regularly with the industry and we are taking up the issues of industry to the respective concerned departments or agencies or authorities where the issue is concerned of. So we are also exploring to how to see the inventorization management of chemicals can be done in the country so that we will have the inventory management and also at least the toxicity profile and the hazardous nature or the probable hazard that a chemical can pose to human health and environment that can be at least assessed. That much data should be there in the country. We are also exploring how that mechanism can be brought. We'll be doing the industry stakeholder consultation, and when everybody will be on the same board, then we will come out on something so that the safety and sustainability should be encouraged and the safety aspect should never be compromised in the industry. Government is very much towards that. So thanks to Indian Chemical Council for organizing such an important conclave and such an useful sessions and for inviting me to listen to such learned speakers and to also share my thoughts. So thank you very much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for sharing, concluding remarks as well as sharing what DCPC is doing to facilitate the industry with respect to both safety and sustainability. With that, I'm conscious of time, so I want to conclude the session. I want to thank all the panelists for their contributions, and we'll end the session now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, for conducting this session very well and, on time, because we are a little bit running behind the schedule. So may I request the chair to, as a token of our appreciation, to present a small kit to our speakers. And I would request my Director General, Mr. Soti Selvam, to, present the kit to the chair, Mr. Srinivasan.